America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about civil society's monopoly on the production of money. And the only way that you can earn money is through participating in market-based civil society, which I think in some way is appropriate. That you earn money through making goods and services for other people who are Americans, and then they buy your goods and services, and that's how we kind of make do. And then we use that money to buy the goods and services we need in order to live our self-determined lives. And in a way, that makes a lot of sense. However, there are things that this nation needs to pay people to do that themselves do not earn concern or attract money. For example, jury duty. Jury duty is something that should be paid, but it's not going to be paid by the market because there's no market for jurors. We need jurors in order to, as a political condition for our markets to function. Another thing is political office, right? There's not really a market for political officials. However, we need political officials to govern and regulate our markets and, dictate family freedoms and secure property and all of these other things. So we need to pay politicians so that politicians don't either abuse their office for the sake of private gain or forswear public office for the sake of private gain. And that's the same thing with jurors. We need to pay jurors so jurors don't try to get out of jury duty for the sake of private gain or, sell their vote on a jury for the sake of private gain. There are other non-political work we need to pay people to do. For example, families. And this is where, if you've noticed a theme in my videos, you knew I was going to come to this. We need certain sorts of families in America. America works best with only certain sort of families. And those families are not the ones who take the extra shift to go work at Dollar General, work that 3 to 11 shift at Dollar General. We need you actually going home and reading to your kids if we want that kid to have a chance. And I say this because I can think of quite a few families that I know that I wish there was a job for them because they would actually do a pretty decent job if they didn't have to hustle and do Uber Eats and all these other kind of crappy jobs. If they could just teach their kids, they could just be good parents. I would like to pay these people to be a quality of parents. And a lot of them are generationally poor. Some are in and out. They themselves grew in and out of the foster care system. So they don't have a lot of other resources so that they can be better parents. But I would like them, instead of taking the second shift, that 3 to 11 shift, and leaving their kids with a friend's friend, to actually be paid somewhat to actually be with their kid and actually make sure their kids, because I know a good number of kids who are just forsaken. I can't raise them all. I raised my family, and I know that these parents would be good, but they're stuck in generational poverty and a quality of acculturation. That's just, the kids are screwed. The kids are 5 years old and I already know those kids are screwed. But they wouldn't be screwed if we had a scheme that paid the parent to actually attend to the kids. And that's why I think of having end of the year tests in elementary school where kids can earn for their families. Families can earn $10,000 for the kid passing the test. And that money goes to the family, right? So you can say, no, I don't need that second shift. I don't need that second shift, that 3 to 11 shift. I can make just as much money by actually working with my kid. And like I said, I think America needs her to work with her kid, right? So there's this idea that America needs you to do certain sort of work that's not necessarily in civil society. The easy way to talk about this is talk about jury duty. Jury duty is not a matter of civil society, but America needs you to do that work. But jury duty pay is a joke. So we need to actually get serious about paying people to do jury duty. We need to actually get serious about paying people to do jury. And for example, I wasn't always clear that we need to pay politicians. But when we didn't pay politicians, the best people didn't go into politics. Number two, when they went into politics, they would abuse their office because they also needed money. So if we actually expect people to do certain sort of work, even if that work isn't in civil society in a way that earns concerns and attracts money in a conventional manner, we need to figure out a way to pay them. And that's what a state that actually manages itself and it understands how these self-governing institutions mutually reinforce each other. So we need good families to produce good citizens, so we produce good states and produce good civil societies. And so we need to pay people to do things in a particular way. We need to pay people to choose not to try to get out of jury duty, but instead go to jury duty. We need to pay people so they're not incentivized to go take that extra shift at Dollar General or that extra shift at wherever, and they're incentivized to instead spend that time working with their kids. And we just need to be honest that we need a lot of other work. We need a lot of other work that's not in civil society. That's not produced by civil society. Timothy Scholar says, what do you mean by civil society? That means the market-based system through which we get our needs met by working in particular spheres to meet other people's needs. Right? I don't know, the introduction is in book 2 of Plato Republic, or find it in Locke, or Hegel's got the good rehearsal of civil society. One of the virtues of civil society means you don't have to do what your parents did. You could participate in society in a way that you choose, as long as the market kind of constrains your actions to things other people need, right? So you don't have to be a cobbler because your parents were cobbler. You don't have to be a pastor because your parents are pastor. You can just look at the demand of society and fit in the way you want to get in, right? So that's how civil society enables a particular kind of freedom. However, there's other sort of work and other sorts of activities we need you to do that aren't a matter of civil society. And that's, for example, participate in jury duty. That means, and civil society, the allures of civil society, since so much of what we need money for, the allures of civil society, and will keep you from actually going to jury duty, from doing this other thing that we need. So we need to figure out a way to pay you for doing jury duty, because we can't fault you for doing the thing that gets you paid, since all of our goods and services in America cost money, or a lot of the particular goods and services we need cost money, right? So we need to figure out a way to pay you to do jury duty. If we need you to pay more attention to your kids, we need to pay you about their academics in that particular way, as opposed to working more so that you could support your family through more money. Then we need to pay you for the work you would rather do, and we need you to do with your child to make sure that they're proficient, right? So we just need to understand that there's a lot of different kind of work we need you to do, and only a small amount of that work earns money in a way. And we tell ourselves that the quality of work that earns money earns enough money to pay for everything. I can earn enough money in civil society that I can afford to do jury duty for free, and I can afford to not have to worry about working that extra shift and can spend time with my family. But actually, it doesn't actually work that way. That's not the way money works, especially with costs substantively outstripping the money you earn in your everyday jobs. Right? So we need to talk about wage subsidies. So there are lots of ways to get at this problem, but we need to recognize that there's a lot of particular kind of work that we need you to do that's not a part of market-based civil society. Like I said, the best way to talk about this is jury duty. And then I think you could talk about why we need to pay politicians. That's not and not a way that should be a for-profit issue. I mean, it shouldn't, you shouldn't go into politics for the money, but you shouldn't also be dissuaded from going into politics because there's no money in it, and you need money to live in a world in which we need money to live, right? So, and that's the same thing with family, with being a good parent. What I'm scared of and what I fear is that some people think being a good parent, the best thing you could do is take that extra shift. And then your kid's at home watching a device, and you think that that's a good thing. No, No. And so I want to be specific. I'm not a fan of basic income. I don't think don't think universal basic income is a great idea. I want to pay people for specific kinds of work. I want to pay people not for who you are necessarily, but for the work you do. And I recognize this work you do. I need to pay you to make sure that you're on your kid about doing well in school. I need to pay you for doing the work of jury duty. I need to pay you for your work, not just pay you for being. Do you see the difference? Right. So we need we need families in a particular kinds of way. We need you to spend your work and your activity and your attention in certain ways. And we need to be willing to admit all of the different ways we need you to spend your work and attention. And then, recognize that through paying you for your work, your productive work. The problem is right now we pretend that you should do jury duty for free. We pretend that you should be the kind of parent that we want you to be for free. Although there are lots of different ways to be a parent. Yeah, I am for a federal jobs guarantee. I'm a huge fan of federal jobs guarantee. $25, $30 an hour. Yes. There are lots of legitimate ways to be a parent, but only certain ways actually work in America to sustain America. So we can't tell people and I want to pay you for the opportunity costs of doing the work for your family or going to jury duty rather than taking the extra shift. So that's kind of why I want to break up civil society's monopoly on money. Insofar as if the only way you can get money is through civil society, these other ways, this other kind of work I need you to do, it's going to be too easy to forego it. All right. So I'd rather you forego your participation in market-based civil society and do this other kind of work. For a lot of people, like I said, I know no small number of people who, instead of driving Uber Eats with their kid in the background or whatever, should instead be at home working with the kid and pouring into the kid. And so I want to figure out a scheme that pays them for that particular kind of work. Now, that doesn't just pay them for being a parent necessarily. That pays them for parenting in a certain sort of way, for working in a certain sort of way with a certain set of accountability. I want your kid to be able to pay that test. And then as soon as your kid passes that test, that grade level test, cha-ching, your direct deposit hits. And I want you to be able to say to your boss, you know what? I don't want this extra shift because I can make that same amount of money going home and reading with my kids. So unless you sweeten that deal, or so I can, pay for a private tutor who's actually better than myself or something like that, I'll just take the time with my kid. I want people to have that sort of ability to negotiate with civil society so that they can do other things that society needs them to do, that our politics needs them to do. Right? So if you don't have any questions, I'm going to cut out. But if you appreciate what I'm doing, which I think you should one, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe, watch this with your fiance and watch this with your loved one, and you can tell me all the different kinds of ways I'm wrong. But I say the way to get into this argument is start with jury duty, then start with why we need to pay politicians, and then start with, parents who would be better parents if they didn't take that extra shift for money. And then you could close with, we need to pay families for their kids passing standardized tests. Because right now, kids pass those standardized tests because of good families. Schools don't teach kids. Schools only multiply what happens in the home. And if we're paying people to not spend time with their kids, which functionally in a lot of jobs we're paying you to not spend time with your kids. I'd rather not only pay you to spend time with your kids, I want to pay you to spend time ensuring that your kids get the quality of education that they need in order to thrive as Americans. What part of California do you live? Are you near the fires? It's funny. I grew up in LA proper, Baldwin Hills. And then in high school, I moved to Orange County. And I just remember every gosh, seemed to be like every 3 years we'd have some sort of huge fire. It would be spectacular. Not even every 3 years. It was like every other year for a while in the 90s. We'd have a spectacular group of fires, and then the ash would be in the air for 14 days afterwards, and then we went back to normal. So I just, and I'm not a big fan of Southern California, so I have a hard time feeling for this the Malibu Pacific Palisades fire. I have a hard time feeling for that, and I guess it spread. But I am not a fan of California in general. Oof. I don't wish bad on anything. I just have a hard time summoning the will to do it. Now I did spend some time in Northern California, and I like Northern California culturally and aesthetically. It's a better fit for me. Aesthetically, it's a better fit for me, but it still stressed me out with pay. All right, does Zed Jelani have kids? I don't think so, but I think he was raised in a family that took family seriously, and he's like seen a bunch of families that understand families, and he's just a smart guy. I like the talk with Zed. I think he's a smart guy. I asked him to come on the show. He came on the show. I thought it was a good. If you appreciate that kind of talk, go ahead and say so in the comments. I might do more of those kinds of things. It's an ordeal to set up. Not that much of an ordeal, but it's an extra thing. So if you really want me to start doing extra things, you need to kick in your, $5, $15, or $50 a month. But mostly Zed just cares about democracy and thinks that you can have political solutions to political problems. You can have political solutions to political problems, and a lot of the nation's political problems, including how to support families, are political. You were a good interviewer. No, I'm a so-so interviewer. Mostly I talk over my guests. But Zed's got a good sense of humor. And I use the interview to get people I want on, and then I hammer them. Now that I have a captive. So I'm a so-so interviewer. But the idea is if I can trick you, somehow cajole you to coming on, I'm going to blow your mind in ways that you didn't think you were going to get blown, and then it'll stick with you. And then when you need to be relevant in a week or two or a month later, the only ideas that will be populating in your mind will be ones that you got on my show. And then I got you. And so, yeah, I'm not that great of an interviewer. But, once I get you, you get fully exposed to me. And that's something special. Right. So, can you renew the Frederick Douglass wing of the GOP? No, but what you can do is deal with, the Democrats are racist because they're just they have all these kind of excuses for the permanency of black degradation. And the GOP is more explicitly racist. And you could just kind of deal with them and just know that that's just going to be what you're going to be. And I just think that's just how you got to meet. That's just how you have to meet the GOP, and that's fine. The arrogance of you, yeah. I am that. All right, so, but I do think I do think we're a center-right nation. College students dating. Let me talk about why you have to deal with the GOP. I do think we're a center-right nation, and the left and the Democrats get a lot of important things wrong because they're a little bit lazy about important institutions like the family, right? And meaning in life. All right, so Irony, I have watched basically every video you've made in the last 2 years, and somehow this is the first time I've caught you live. Yeah, I'm starting to do more shows at night when I put the kids down to kind of wind down. Usually I do the shows in the middle of the day, but this is I'm starting to do a little bit more night stuff. Do you have any advice or red flags for college students dating? Man. All right, so here's the deal. I did not know how to date when I was in college. it was really complicated. Like had all these anxieties, so I could never really tell if a girl liked me, and like the signs were always. And I look back and I see, and now I think back and I think, oh yeah, she was throwing herself at me, and I just couldn't put two and two together because I was like either distracted by another girl, but most likely just completely insecure and found it impossible to believe that I had a chance with X. But what if I have any piece of advice for dating in college, is if someone who's really cool, and really smart and really kind of has a good sense of humor and you really hit it off, and hot, because if you're not hot in college, when else are you going to get hot, right? And they're into you, just lock it down, man. just lock that down. Lock it down. If someone's really hip and they're into you and they have like a good sense of humor and they're smart, hopefully they're smart because you meet them in college. Just lock it down. You'll figure it out the rest later. If they have a good sense, you'll figure out the rest later. And if they have if you could sit them down and watch this with them, and they're not like, oh, I can't listen to him, he's a misogynist, and all of that stuff. If that's them, then like I said, just lock it down. It doesn't get better. It just gets different. And you'll figure out the rest together. Yeah. All right. So log from the Sea of Cortez. Let me see. I did read it. That was Steinbeck's journal from kind of where he got the inspiration for a lot of the stories he told in Cannery Row. I don't remember being particularly moved by it. I read it in my 20s. So, Ed Ricketts was the inspiration for Doc, and I do have a sweet spot for Doc. But yeah, maybe I'll take a look for it. Take a look at it. I don't know if I have it on my bookshelf. I've had to replenish my library so many times through all my moves in my 20s that I don't know what's made it and what's not. But yeah, I believe it. I believe it. I'm a huge Steinbeck fan. That's why I did the video on him. Right. So real quickly, if you're just tuning in, civil society is the market-based manner in which we earn money to secure the products and services we need to sustain our lives and our particular way of lives. And that's good because that means we don't have to do what our parents did. We don't have to live our life by convention. We could actually live our life by a freedom that's enabled by the market. However, there is a lot of work and a lot of different particular kinds of activities that the state needs us to do that doesn't earn money on the market. For example, jury duty does not earn money on the market, but the state needs us to do it. But the state needs us also to not try to get out of it, to do things that actually earn us money. So the state needs to somehow incentivize us to do this thing that is going to take us away from making money. So we need to pay people to do jury duty. Same deal with political office in general. The reason why we need to pay them, I actually think we should pay Olympic athletes. We should pay Olympic athletes because we need you to do this. And there are a lot of perks to being an Olympic athlete, but I think it should be explicit. We need to pay you to be like an Olympic athlete. Forget this amateur stuff. Olympic athletes should be treated like the professional athletes they are, like officially, and not necessarily by like whoring them out to corporates. Because what if you want to be an Olympic athlete, but you don't want to be a corporate prostitute, but you're not independently rich? All right. So I think we should just pay Olympic athletes. We want them to do a thing. Right? All right, so can you respond to Kevin M's previous comment? You talk a lot about raising kids. This is Kevin M's previous comment. You talk a lot about raising kids, but not much on whether to have them in the first place. A big decision these days. I think you should have kids. I think it's a good way to secure meaning in your life if you're willing to do it meaningfully. I don't understand. Like, nobody else really has to listen to me. Nobody else really has to listen to me except my kids. And I'm kind of creating awful kids because, not awesome kids because they have to listen to me. So I just don't understand why you'd give up that chance of making a meaningful impression in life. Like, I'm going to live in their memory forever in a meaningful way. Now, it's possible I will live in your memory, and you'll tell stories to your kids about me, and my work will live in memory that way. But most likely, the only people who will remember me on through the generations are those in my line, because I'm giving them such an outstanding experience and a particular experience of childhood that that they'll be able to distinguish their childhood from other childhoods and then reproduce that particular childhood, and then they'll thank their granddad or their dad for, giving them the quality of childhood and a particular quality of experience that they know to give to their kids. So I'm creating meaning through my relationship with them that I don't think I can create through my relationship with even students or you guys. If you don't like hearing what I have to say, even if I'm right, you just click over to a Mr. Beast video or something like that. No, my kids have to deal with me. And it's a really kind of awesome responsibility, but it's pretty awesome just in general. My 10-year-old doesn't really gravitate towards much I listen to on YouTube, but on occasion I play one of your videos, it grabs its full attention. Good. I think if I'm not cursy, too sweary, you should hash a lot of the arguments I have out with your 10-year-old. I support that. Okay, so I don't know if your proposal takes into account the current deficit that property has created. You probably need to give a base amount to families, then boost with educational proficiency. All right, so I would be in favor of stipends, because the idea is that you shouldn't be penalized because your parents are poor, right? So I want to give parents a certain stipend for having parents, and I don't necessarily think it would be inflationary because it would just go to parents. It wouldn't go to just everybody. And parents spend money, so yeah, I would be in favor of stipends. Richard Dean Winfield talks about this in his book. Democracy Unchained. It's actually a really good book. You should talk about. You should get this book. It's actually, it's pretty good. Between this and my shows, you'll have a pretty good roadmap for the future of progressive America if we are going to progress. And if you want, dating advice, someone said, I gave great dating advice. Run clubs and book clubs. Yes, I'll tell you. And I'll tell the story again. I went to my first book club I went to, I was mid-20s. I was on Craigslist. And I saw the book clubs on Craigslist. This was, in the 90s where that was a thing that could happen, or early 2000, that was a thing that could happen. And I saw there was a book club meeting at a Coca-Cola cafe down in Berkeley. And I was like, okay, I'll go to this book club. And they were reading Cannery Row, and I just finished it a few months prior. And so I rode my bike down to the cafe and I had my backpack, and I just kind of walked in. I was like 23, 24. And expecting just to talk about the book. And then I sat down, I look around, and it's just an explosion of chicks. It's just chicks, hot, smart women. And I was taken aback. And and I was just realizing that what was I doing all this time? Because it turns out that I could find bookish girls just by, either starting or joining book clubs. And then same with run clubs. Yeah. Like everyone there is hot. And you're seeing them kind of at their worst and they're still hot because they're athletic. And pretty much if you drink a lot of water, you're young and you're athletic, that's already like 80% of the game. So, like if you're going to run a 5K or a 3K and you're down to do it every week, then you're probably going to be pretty attractive. And in your 20s, then everything's going to be coursing, so you're going to be a little bit horny. So you just have like really like, and a good sense of humor. So yeah, run clubs and book clubs. It turns out I saw a list of hobbies that girls like. I happen to have a lot of hobbies that girls like. In a lot of ways, I am a walking red flag. I am going to be broke, probably convincingly so, and unrepentantly so. I'm a little judgy, but I read books. I know music, and not just like bands. I could talk classical music for hours. Like I know serious music. So if you're into serious music or like music in a serious way, I could talk about like I can talk Beethoven, Brahms, Bach. I could talk and talk serious music. And, I could read Latin, Greek, and German. Not very well, and I have a tongue like a potato, so I can't really speak German. But I can read well enough that I understand English very well. And I'm comfortable in languages. And it turns out those are things that women like. And I don't like video games. And so I am, in terms of like things that people like, things that girls likes, I am up there, even if I'm like regular height, broke, and have weak eyes. Yeah, because it turns out all you have to do if you want cool girls is to be good with languages, read, talk about music, not be into video games, and be somewhat athletic. But if you could but if you have those kinds of hobbies, they tend to like them. Now the gold diggers like a different sort of hobbies. They like a different genre, different milieu of hobbies. But for the ones who are not, they like the hobbies I listed. Yeah, can I play an instrument? I'm actually a pretty good oboe player. I know it's a random thing to be. It's not a great flex, but I'm better than you think I am. It's not really something I talk about that much because it's impossible to tell people how good of like something like that. But yeah, I'm a very good oboe player. I play the oboe. P.S. I went to Oberlin College. Great music school, by the way. My dad went to Berkeley. Good. P.S. I'm reading Ross Moab's comment. He says, P.S. he went to Oberlin College and his dad went to Berkeley. I love all the funky academics of the world and this goodness forsaken country. Let's talk music all night long. Yeah, maybe I will do a show where we just like talk about symphonies. Shit, yeah, I could do that. I could do that in my sleep. I could do that in a sleep. I can do that. Like, yeah, I'll do a show where I just like go over the coolest parts of all of the classical music oeuvre and what classical music does. And that will get, watch that get like 300 views, but I'll get like 150 new subscribers who actually pay. Yeah. Yes, play the oboe. I'm not going to dance for you people. I don't like, I know it's the only people who are asking for this in chat are not like serious classical musicians. You've outed yourself because nobody who is actually serious would say that. So, but yeah, I'll do a show where I talk symphonies. I'll do that. I can do that tomorrow because that'd be fun, and I'd love talking music. So it will be the classical music show is upcoming. Peace.